Have you ever just stopped and wondered why some countries are incredibly rich while others seem trapped in desperate poverty? It's one of the biggest questions in the world, and the answer isn't what you probably think. It's not about geography or culture or even ignorance. So let's get into it. It all kicks off with this really powerful story. Back in 2000, two brothers who'd been separated for 50 long years by the Korean War finally got to see each other again. Hwang Peng-won, from the south, saw his brother's coat was totally worn out, so he offered him his own. His brother's reply, it was just heartbreaking. This moment was more than just a family reunion. It was a tiny window into two completely different universes. And you know, that personal story, it just explodes onto a massive scale when you look at the Korean peninsula from space. Seriously, the south is just blazing with light, a sea of electricity that shows off its prosperity. And the north, by contrast, it's a deep, dark ocean of black. How on earth did two places, starting from the exact same point, end up this different? To get our heads around this, we have to go back to the 38th parallel. Now, this isn't some ancient border carved out by a river or mountains. Nope. It's a line somebody drew on a map after World War II. And in doing so, they created a perfect and really tragic natural experiment. So here's how it went down. The country gets split in half in 1945. Just 5 years later, a devastating war breaks out and it rips families like the Wongs apart. They then go on to live in two completely separate realities for half a century before that emotional reunion in 2000. And just look at the results of that 50-year experiment. The brother in the South, he became a pharmacist, owned a car, had a phone, lived a comfortable life. His brother in the North, even with a prestigious job as an Air Force doctor, had no car, no personal phone, and was, as his brother described him, thin as a rake. It's just night and day. And that brings us right to the heart of it. The people of North and South Korea. They share the same language, the same thousands of years of history, the same culture. So what could possibly explain this unbelievable gap in wealth and health? Well, the answer is all about the rules. It's about institutions. The entire difference, it really just boils down to the economic institutions in each country. You can think of them as the rules of the game, the rules that shape how everyone lives, works, and makes decisions. So on one side, you've got what are called inclusive economic institutions. Just like it sounds, these are rules designed to let everyone participate, to let everyone get in on the action. They aim to create a level playing field where people are free to use their talents and chase their dreams. South Korea is the classic example here. They made sure private property was secure, meaning what you built, you got to keep. They set up a fair legal system, and they gave people the freedom to pick their own careers and start their own businesses. All these rules together created incredible incentives for people to innovate, to invest, and to work hard. And then you've got the total opposite, extractive economic institutions. The name pretty much says it all, right? These rules are designed for one thing and one thing only: to extract wealth and income from the many to benefit a small, powerful few. And yeah, this is the road North Korea went down. Private property was basically abolished. Markets were banned. The state controlled everything. And you have to ask yourself, why would you work hard or come up with a great new idea if you knew the state was just going to take it all away? This kind of system just completely strangles prosperity. The result of these two different rulebooks? A staggering 10-fold gap in living standards. 10 to 1. This didn't happen by accident. It's a direct outcome of the rules each country chose to live by. Okay, but that just leads to the next big question, right? If these inclusive rules are so obviously better for a country, why doesn't every nation just choose them? Where do these rules even come from in the first place? And here's the crucial insight. Economic institutions don't just fall out of the sky. They are chosen. They are designed. And the process for choosing them, well, that's called politics. Whoever holds political power gets to set the economic rules of the game for everyone else. And this is where things can get really nasty, because it creates a powerful and vicious cycle. It starts when a small elite grabs all the political power. Then they use that power to write the economic rules that funnel the nation's wealth right into their own pockets, and that wealth, well, they use it to pay for the army and the police they need to crush anyone who disagrees and make sure they stay in power, locking the whole system in place. Okay, so this brings us to what is maybe the most shocking and mind-bending part of this whole theory, the idea that leaders might actually choose policies that keep their own countries poor. It sounds completely insane, but there's a cold, hard logic to it. This is the real head-scratcher. I mean, wouldn't a powerful ruler be even richer if his country was also rich and prosperous? It seems like common sense. But the answer, believe it or not, is often no. And the reason is all about a deep-seated fear of progress itself. That fear is of something economists call creative destruction. It's the engine of all economic progress. It's that constant churning where the new replaces the old. Think of how streaming services replace video stores, or how cars replace the horse and buggy. This process creates massive growth, but it also creates losers. The Industrial Revolution is a perfect case study. It made a whole new class of merchants and factory owners incredibly rich. But the old guard, the landed aristocracy, whose wealth and power were tied to agriculture, they were the economic losers. But more importantly, they were the political losers, as a powerful new middle class rose up to challenge their control. And that, right there, is the big twist. Elites in these extractive systems, they block progress, but not because they're ignorant or don't know any better. They do it out of a very rational fear. They know that the creative destruction that's necessary for economic growth will also destroy their political power. So they choose to keep the nation poor to secure their own power and wealth. So, when you pull all these different threads together, this huge, messy puzzle of global wealth and poverty suddenly starts to make a whole lot of sense. The path to prosperity, it isn't some hidden secret. It's a choice. It's a choice about the rules we all decide to live by. All right, let's just nail down the big takeaways here. First, a country's wealth comes down to its institutions. Second, inclusive institutions create the incentives for everyone to invest and innovate. Third, extractive institutions do the opposite. They're just there to benefit a tiny elite. And fourth, those elites often fight against inclusive institutions because they're terrified of creative destruction threatening their power. And that all leads to the final point. Prosperity is a choice, but it is fundamentally a political choice. And all of this leaves us with one final gigantic question. If we know the formula for prosperity, if we know it's all about building these inclusive institutions, what does it actually take to break the cycle? To break the grip of the extractive elite and actually change the rules of the game? That right there is the fundamental challenge facing so much of the world today.